It was said a punishment from beyond the grave was unleashed upon them, a divine vengeance for stealing the eternal slumber of a king, and then people started to die. Of all the pharaohs to ever rule ancient Egypt, none achieved immortality quite like the boy king Tutankhamun. For over 3 millennia, his name was a footnote in the dusty annals of history, until a single moment in November 1922 catapulted him into godlike fame and ignited a legend of a curse so terrifying it would captivate and horrify the modern world. It began not with a bang, but with the careful scrape of a trowel, as archaeologist Howard Carter finally laid eyes on the sealed doorway to a lost tomb in the Valley of the Kings. With him stood his financier, Lord Carnarvon, a man who had gambled a fortune on a dream and was mere seconds from the greatest archaeological payoff in human history. But as that ancient seal was broken, a shadow fell. This is the story of the Pharaoh's curse. Our tale of obsession and discovery does not begin in the sun-scorched valleys of Egypt, but in the damp, rolling greens of the English countryside. Several months before that fateful November day, Howard Carter stood in the opulent library of the Highclere Castle, the historic English manor home of his frustrated benefactor, the 5th Earl of Carnarvon. He was not a fictional lord, but his story was every bit as dramatic. For 7 long years, Carnarvon had been the patron, funding Carter's frantic search in the desert. And for 7 years, the return on his investment had been pitiful. A few scraps of linen, some broken shards of pottery, and little else. The Great War had interrupted their work, but the truth was undeniable. Carnarvon had poured a fortune into a hole in the ground. He summoned Carter to Highclere to end the venture. The Earl's patience and his purse were exhausted, but Carter, a man possessed by a singular vision, pleaded for one final season. He had a powerful clue the Earl could not ignore. Those insignificant finds, those broken bits of pottery, almost all bore a single, tantalizing name inscribed upon them: Tutankhamun. Carter was close. He could feel it. Lord Carnarvon, against his better judgment, agreed to fund one last dig. Carter had 1 year. He would only need 3 days. On November 1st, 1922, Carter resumed his work in the Valley of the Kings, near the tomb of the pharaoh, Ramses VI. Just 72 hours later, on November 4th, a hushed silence fell over the workers. A water boy stumbled over a stone that was not like the others. It was not random rubble, but the top step of a staircase, deliberately carved and then hidden beneath centuries of sand and debris. Feverish digging revealed a descending stairway, ending at a doorway sealed with the intact necropolis seals of ancient Egypt. Carter's heart must have hammered against his ribs. He immediately sent a telegram to Highclere. At last have made wonderful discovery in valley. A magnificent tomb with seals intact. Recovered same for your arrival. Congratulations. Carnarvon rushed to Egypt on November 26th, with Earl standing anxiously behind him. Carter made a small hole in the sealed doorway. He held a candle to the breach, his eyes straining in the dim light. As his eyes adjusted, the wonders of the ages slowly revealed themselves. Lord Carnarvon, unable to stand the silence, muttered, "Can you see anything?" Carter's reply is history. "Yes," he said, his voice trembling. "Wonderful things." The light glinted off gold, everywhere gold. Golden chariots, golden statues, golden beds, and golden shrines. The antechamber was packed to the ceiling with over 5,000 priceless artifacts, a treasure hoard frozen in time for over 3,200 years. It was the most pristine pharaonic tomb ever discovered, and at its heart, guarded by 2 life-size statues of the king, was another sealed doorway, behind which they would eventually find the nested sarcophagi and the solid gold coffin containing the mummy of the pharaoh, Tutankhamun himself. The world's media, hungry for wonder after the horrors of the Great War, descended to the valley. Carnarvon, a shrewd businessman, had sold exclusive reporting rights to the Times of London, maddening every other newspaper on earth. They needed an angle, a story, something to sell papers, and they would soon get one. For from the moment that first doorway was breached, strange occurrences began. The first victim of the so-called curse was not a man, but a bird. On the very day of the discovery, Carter's pet canary, which he kept in a cage outside his home, was found dead. Coiled in the cage was a cobra, the serpent that swallowed the songbird whole. To the local Egyptian workers, this was no coincidence. It was a potent omen. The cobra was the uraeus, the symbol of divine royalty, worn on the crown of the pharaohs, the very symbol found on the golden brows of the statues guarding Tutankhamun's inner chamber. The serpent of Egypt had struck its first blow. Mutters began. They had disturbed a power they did not understand. Howard Carter, a rational man of science, dismissed the talk as superstitious nonsense. He pressed on with the excavation, but the mutters became a roar with the next death. Just a few months later, Lord Carnarvon was in Cairo. A simple mosquito bite on his cheek became infected when he nicked it while shaving. What should have been a minor irritation rapidly spiraled into severe blood poisoning and pneumonia. On April 5th, 1923, a little more than 4 months after entering the tomb, the man who had bankrolled the discovery was dead. He was 56 years old. The news flashed around the globe, and it was accompanied by a chilling detail that seemed to confirm every superstitious fear. At the precise moment of Lord Carnarvon's death back in England, the lights in Highclere Castle suddenly flickered out and failed. His dog Susie let out a great howl and dropped dead. Curse had claimed its first human victim and had announced its victory with a theatrical flourish. The press, starved of access, now had their story. They printed it with glee. They claimed that a hieroglyphic inscription had been found over the tomb's entrance, a warning that read, "Death shall come on swift wings to him who disturbs the peace of the king." They reported that a study of the mummy, months later, revealed a dark lesion on the left cheek of Tutankhamun's body, in the exact same place as Carnarvon's fatal mosquito bite. The narrative was perfect. The curse of the pharaoh was real. Death did not stop. George J. Gould, a wealthy American financier who had visited the tomb, succumbed to a mysterious fever shortly after. Arthur Mace, a key member of Carter's excavation team who had helped break through the final doorway, was next, dying in 1928 from arsenic poisoning, though the circumstances were murky. Then Richard Bethel, Carter's secretary, died of a heart attack in his sleep in 1929, though sensational rumors immediately and falsely claimed he had been smothered by an assailant. His father, Lord Westbury, plunged to his death from his 7th-story apartment shortly after. The hearse carrying his body to the cemetery allegedly ran over and killed a young boy on the way. The chain of misery seemed unbreakable. Even the creator of the world's most logical mind, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, publicly declared his belief in the curse, suggesting elemental spirits created the ancient priests to guard the tomb where the culprits. The public was fascinated. A supernatural plague was hunting down those who had violated the sacred tomb. But what of the man who started it all? What terrible fate awaited Howard Carter? He waited and he worked. For 10 years, he meticulously catalogued and cleared the tomb's magnificent contents. He lived a full life, dying not from the cobra's bite or a phantom fever, but from Hodgkin's lymphoma at the age of 64 in 1939, a full 17 years after his great discovery. His long life throws a glaring, rational light onto the shadowy legend of the curse. In fact, of the 58 people present when the tomb and sarcophagus were opened, only 8 died within the next decade. Most, like Carter, lived long and productive lives. The curse was a masterpiece of confirmation bias, cherry-picking tragic events and ignoring the vast majority who went unscathed. So, what was really behind the myth? The answer is a cocktail of opportunism, coincidence, and a very real, though perfectly natural, danger. Firstly, the infamous hieroglyphic curse. It was almost certainly a fabrication by journalists. While curses did exist in some tombs, no such inscription was ever recorded by Carter or his team at Tutankhamun's burial site. The press invented a sensational story to sell newspapers, and the public, eager for mystery, enthusiastically bought it. Secondly, Lord Carnarvon's death, while tragic, was not mysterious. He had been in extremely poor health ever since a near-fatal car accident in 1903. His doctors had actually recommended he winter in Egypt's dry climate to aid his recovery, which is what first sparked his interest in Egyptology. His immune system was severely compromised, making a simple infected insect bite a potentially lethal event. The story of the lights going out at Highclere was likely a romanticized anecdote added later. The death of his dog was a coincidence. As for the lesion on the mummy's cheek matching Carnarvon's bite, by the time the mummy was examined, Carnarvon had been dead for months. No one could reliably remember or verify which cheek the mosquito had bitten, making the match a convenient post hoc detail. But what of the other deaths? Could there be a scientific explanation? Perhaps a more tangible curse lurking within the tomb itself? Modern science suggests yes, but it requires no ancient magic. Sealed tombs can become breeding grounds for bacteria and fungi. In the airless, dark, and humid environment, pathogens can thrive for centuries. When such a tomb is suddenly opened, these ancient organisms can be released as spores into the air. In the case of Tutankhamun's tomb, researchers have speculated that the presence of toxic molds like Aspergillus flavus, which can cause fatal allergic reactions and infections in those with weakened immune systems, could have contributed to the illness and deaths of those first to enter the confined space. It was not a supernatural curse, but a very natural one, dormant for millennia and waiting for a host. The curse, then, is a legend, woven from threads of truth, fear, and sensationalism. It's a story that reveals more about us than about the ancient Egyptians. It speaks to our primal fear of reckoning, our awe of the past, and our love of a good ghost story. It's a narrative so powerful that it eclipsed the pharaoh's own historical significance. Tutankhamun was a minor king, a child who ruled for less than a decade, born of royal incest that likely left him with crippling genetic disorders. His true curse may have been his own bloodline. So, was the tomb of Tutankhamun cursed? In a way, yes. It was cursed by the relentless hunger of the media, by our own capacity for fear, and perhaps cursed by the invisible biological guardians that time had placed at its door. But the magic and mystery were ours to create. Howard Carter uncovered the king's gold, but he crafted the legend, and sometimes the story we tell is more powerful than the truth it obscures. The pharaoh's peace was indeed disturbed, and from that disturbance, an immortal legend was born. Watch the next video for more ancient tales, and let us know in the comments below which myth would you like us to reveal next.